What up? A beautiful Wednesday morning to you. It's Nordo in for PA, vocal maintenance in play. And we'll get to the TimberTech set list at the end of this segment, but I just want to jump right into it. It took OT, but our hockey team got it done.
Hansen now, center, Zuccarello scores! Matt Zuccarello wins it in overtime! Nice setup by Johansson, and with $1:51 to go in the extra session, the Wild prevail in this one, 4-3 from United Center.
That's how it sounded on your home for Wild Hockey, the fan. But, of course, you check in FanDuel Sports Style to hear how this gentleman analyzes things on television. It's Wes Walz joining me this morning. How you doing, Wes?
Nordo, great to be with you this morning, kicking things off on a Wednesday morning. I'm doing great, thanks.
No, that's awesome, and I appreciate you joining, and I appreciated, speaking of kicking things off, how about knocking off that 3L little stretch there? 3 non-playoff teams from the East roll into our building and find 2 points. It was nice to see them get back on their feet and in stride again last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, you want to try to beat those teams that are, non-playoff teams. You want to try to beat everybody, every night you're going out there. But I know there's been so much made of the Wild the last few games not getting wins against, Philadelphia and Toronto, teams that they should beat. But I think a lot of it perfectly, to be honest, Nordo has been so overplayed.
Okay.
I know the Wild for sure, and even Billy Guerin come out. We got to start better. There's no question about that. The team needed to start better, and they did against Chicago. I think they had 17 shots, and I think the chances were 15-2. They came out and punched the Hawks in the nose in the first period, and then had enough to get through to the finish line. It wasn't a complete perfect game last night against Chicago. But the previous 2 games against Toronto and Philadelphia, Nordo, I think we outshot the Flyers 42-18. I believe we had a graphic in the post game. The shot attempts against the Flyers were 85-39. And if you just looked at that graphic in that Flyer game, you would say the Flyers had like a 1% chance to win that game, and we ended up losing that game. We got goalied in the next game in Toronto. Even strength play against Toronto. We had the puck in the offensive zone 30 and a half minutes. They had it for 13. I know we lost the games, and there's times you're going to get goalied. And those 2 games, we definitely got goalied. So I wasn't in as panic mode as most people were in the state. Now, if the Wild lose a couple games in a row where they get outplayed, like from beginning to end, then I start to wave the flags, or not wave the flags, but get concerned. I honestly have no concern about this team and the way they're playing at all right now. None.
Well, I love that you drew that out the way you did, because later on I was going to ask you just something we'd kind of bandied about last couple of days, 9 to noon when PA was here, just kind of how difficult can it be, or maybe it isn't a factor here when you're kind of locked into a matchup, right? They, pedal down, but you're also sort of in neutral, where it is likely Dallas, regardless of the results. And so I wonder if there's a mental factor at play. But based on how you laid that out, maybe that's not a factor based on the recency of evaluating those 3 games.
Well, no, I do agree with you, Nordo. I think it could be a factor and will probably be a factor the last 14, 15 games of the season, how many we ever have left. When you're in a situation where like 4 weeks before the playoffs start, who you're going to play. And don't get me started with the whole seeding thing. That's a whole nother segment we could work on down the road. But Dallas is probably at some point going to go through it too, where there's going to be some peaks and valleys to their game, knowing that they're probably going to play the Wild. Although looking closer where they're at right now, I think they're only 3 points behind Colorado, so they have a lot to play for. The Wild still have. It's not like the games are meaningless. This game Saturday afternoon against Dallas is gigantic. If they lose that game in regulation, I think we pretty much know that we're going to be starting April 16th in Dallas. But yeah, human nature plays a big part of this. You start the season, you're in absolute grind mode every night, and you just want to try to make the playoffs. And then when you get to game 50 or 60, it felt like Nordo in game 55, we already knew that we were probably going to play the Dallas Stars.
Yeah.
The way everything kind of shook out. It's been just a very, very strange year and a very unique year. But having said that, for both teams, like Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota, the position that they've put themselves in, you could take advantage of as well too. Is you don't have to force guys into the lineup. Like Eck didn't play, last night. It sounds like he might miss the next couple games. You don't have to force guys into the lineup because you're 3 points up on a playoff spot, and now you put yourself, because of all the winning you did throughout the beginning of the part of the season, you put yourself in a good spot where you can, pick and choose, who should play if they're banged up a little bit. You can juggle a little bit more with lines and try to experiment. Maybe the next 10 games, Nordo, might be an opportunity for Coach John Hines to just maybe throw some different line combinations together, some D partner pairs together. I think you want to have it dialed in the last 3 or 4 games of the season so everybody knows exactly what's going on, who's playing with who. But I think this does allow a lot of opportunity. The fact that the Wild know who they're going to play and the fact that they're going to be in the playoffs 4 weeks from now, there is some advantages to that, obviously, as well.
Let me ask you that you mentioned it, just kind of even strength opportunities, specifically in that Toronto game where they dominated from a possession and zone time standpoint. They had that thing locked down, just couldn't find their way into the net. Mm-hmm. So, as we enter into the playoffs, one thing that I've been thinking about is this is one of the best power play teams in the NHL. How are they 5v5? Is there anything you particularly like, or maybe that you look at and it's like that needs to be better from an even strength scoring standpoint for our favorite hockey team?
Well, our 5-on-5 play, our 5-on-5 play offensively since Quinn Hughes has joined our team has been ridiculous. Ridiculous, unbelievable offensively 5-on-5 or at even strength. But I don't think since Quinn has joined our team, I don't think we have been as tight defensively over these last 30, 40 games as we were before Quinn joined our team. Because I think, before Quinn joined our team, we knew 100%, we had to just check the other team into the ice, and we were doing that on a consistent basis. Now, since Quinn Hughes has joined our team, he gives us such an amazing dynamic offensively, and of course you're going to need that dynamic because there's going to be times in the playoffs you're down in games. To have a player like that is you'd want to have that 100 times out of 100. But I think sometimes breaking the puck out of your zone, playing in the offensive zone, you're having so much fun because you're spending so much time in the offensive zone every night that sometimes when you come back into your own zone, you might be saving a little bit of energy and maybe subconsciously, maybe not quite being as engaged as you need to be. And again, it falls back into that scenario, Nordo. Playing defensively as a team it's hard work, and you got to be mentally strong to be ready to play in your own zone defensively. And, every rep, every time you come back into your own zone. But this Wild team is just so gifted offensively right now, pretty much every night they're going to get 3 to 5 goals. And so that's been a little bit more of a difficult thing for the Wild to dial in my opinion. So you asked me that question about even strength. So I haven't loved their defensive game in their own zone. It feels like they're giving up 1 or 2 a night. Where there's kind of free looks. So that's going to need to be tightened up. And I think the players in the locker room understand that too. And I do think that'll be an area that will get tightened up as we get closer, to hook and horns with Dallas or Colorado, probably Dallas.
Well, I appreciate that perspective, Wes, because as I led into that, I was kind of thinking offensively, but you're right. Since Quinn joined, that dynamic has really shifted how everything operates. I didn't even fathom or hadn't been there mentally to think about the defensive impact of that. Now, that's Wes Walz, FanDuel Sports Network North. And, I was watching the game last night and hey, there's no Gustafsson. And I don't know about you. Were you checking the crease for vomit?
I was thinking, my mind went the same place you did, that he wasn't feeling very good. I think he answered the question in the post game. I think he said he had some equipment, failure or something that he need a little bit more time or whatever. But hey, listen, Nordo, nothing surprises me with goalies, man. And you saw the look on John Hines' face when he looked down the hall. I think John Hines was representing the state of hockey when he looked down the hall at Gus, where are you going? So I don't know if we call that toilet gate or whatever. So who knows exactly what happened down there. And I may dig into it a little later this week to figure out exactly what went on. But regardless, he did come back, Gus, and and after his equipment issue, quote unquote. So, like I said, you got the Zuccarello goal in overtime was obviously a big overtime goal for Zucchi, because it just kind of calms the waters just a little bit. And the Wild lose that game after a 3-1 lead, and lose that game in overtime, and then the narrative just continues on right now. So it was a huge goal for Zucchi and the Minnesota Wild.
Just a few more for you. And by the way, I'd put Toiletgate in my back pocket. Maybe that's a TV feature or vignette we can see as we approach the playoffs here. Watching that game last night, PA got the chance, and he did this via Motzko and Go for Hockey. We do the bus bit, right? Call, and Coach Motzko chats with us, hand the phone around to players, and he developed a relationship with Oliver Moore, former Gopher, now a member of the Blackhawks. He's banged up, so he's not in the mix right now. But had him on yesterday. Great kid, somebody you root for, and just watching the Blackhawks, like Connor Bedard, such a pleasure to watch. Are the Blackhawks headed in a positive direction, do you think?
Oh yeah, Nordo, they're a heck of a team. Right. Like they've got some great pieces there. They finally recognized 2 years ago they had to go out and get a goalie, and they traded Seth Jones and brought in Spencer Knight. And you can't win without a goaltender. You probably need two. Bringing in Spencer Knight was a game changer for them. Obviously, Connor Bedard's game has gone to another level. Their defensemen, if you look at some of the teams that have won Stanley Cups, and Florida the last couple of years, they've won Stanley Cups too, but they haven't had the biggest set of defensemen. But if you look at actually even before Florida, some of the teams that have won the Cups, they've had some really big, long players and defensemen around the net. The Vegas Golden Knights, St. Louis comes to my mind. And you look at Chicago, I think 5 of their 6 defensemen are over 6'5". Like they're just long and hard to play against. And it's a big reason why the Chicago Blackhawks penalty kill, I think they mentioned on the broadcast, was first in the NHL last night. And I was just thinking about those long, heavy, big defensemen around the front of the net. They're in good shape. Guys like Oliver Moore, you'd mentioned, he's an unbelievable kid. I don't know if you read the article that Joe Smith wrote about the Nick Foligno had a camp during the summer, and he invited all the Chicago Blackhawks kids to his lake place out in Sudbury this past summer. And they were out there for 5 days for a camp, and obviously Oliver was out there. I've never met Oliver Moore, but apparently he had a little sleepwalking episode at one of the evenings. I think it was actually the first evening. He had gotten out of his bed and was walking around the house, and the guys had no clue, had never seen anyone sleepwalk before. And it was Nick Foligno said he was scared. He had never seen anything like it. They quietly woke him up, but anyways, an interesting thing about Oliver that I didn't know, and I'm not sure exactly. I was just thinking to myself when I'm reading the article how I would have handled that if some kid was walking around, never really seen anyone sleepwalk before, but. That kid's he can absolutely fly. I think they picked him up in the first round here just recently. So they've got a lot of great draft picks, in the cupboards right now, and they're going to be good here in about 2 or 3 years, Nordo, for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. And I can tell you almost for a fact the next time PA has Oliver Moore on, the sleepwalking conversation is going to be 6 or 7 straight minutes, I bet.
Oh yes.
Hey, this year as we get into the playoffs here, Wild back against Chicago, of course, tomorrow, and then Dallas in town on Saturday. Hometown team. Let's get some W's, of course. But just kind of globally right now, whether it's the Buffalo Sabres or the Anaheim Ducks, is there a team that's just like, that's kind of the story of the season? I mean, you get into the dance, you mentioned the seeding, it's weird. A lot of good teams are going to be gone after the first round, but you think about the Ducks and just kind of the languishing they've done in recent years, the Sabres begging for a quality team. They got one now. Just, there's some really cool things happening here in the NHL globally as we get closer to postseason.
Yeah, obviously we're enamored by the Western Conference. That's the side of the league that we play on. We know more about those teams. But if you look at, what's going on in the East, Nordo, is absolutely crazy. The Florida Panthers are not going to make the playoffs. They've won the Cup the last 2 years.
Yeah.
The Toronto Maple Leafs are out. The Rangers are going to be out. Teams like Buffalo are in there. Ottawa's probably going to be in there. Montreal, it's been a flip-flop of 4 teams that you thought were 100% locks to make the top 8 to get in. They're going to be out. So there's going to be a lot of new blood in the Eastern Conference. You mentioned Buffalo, just kind of treading water through the first 40 games of the season, kind of a 500 team trying to find their way, and then something clicked with their team. I don't know what's going on out there, but they've been the best team in the league. I think the last, I want to say 2.5 months, it's been incredible what's gone on out there. But, you know, the playoffs, Nordo, as you know, are just, hockey playoffs are incredible. And, I can't wait, for it to start. You know, obviously the Wild, you know, we got to keep everybody healthy. That's the key. You know, you need a little bit of luck, Nordo, along the way. You got 15 games left. You know, some of the teams this year that haven't made the playoffs, Toronto had some injury issues. Florida's had a lot of injury issues. You need a little bit of luck along the way, and hopefully these last 15 games, everybody can stay healthy and stay loose. So we've got we got all the bullets in the chamber when we play that Dallas Stars on that April 16th in Game 1. So we'll see how it all plays out, but it's been a crazy season all around the league.
Hey, can't thank you enough for giving me some time this morning. Love your analysis. Love you on TV. Love when we get to see you at TRIA, and I hope we get to talk again soon.
Yeah, Nordo, anytime, buddy. You know that.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. That's Wes Walz. You can follow him at Walz with a Z, 3737, the captain. Kicking off 9 to noon. It is Nordo in for PA, vocal maintenance and play, and Brett Blakemore produces. And that brings us to the TimberTech set list. Thanks again to Wes Walz, FanDuel Sports Network North, and TimberTech, timbertech.com. At 10 a.m., we're going to have Paul Charchian on from his nuclear bunker somewhere in Utah. And then at 10:35, so a lot of Kyler conversation. We just got a punter who passes. We have some O-linemen, super quiet free agency for your favorite team, losing more bodies than we are bringing in. We'll see how that changes potentially between now and the draft. But football conversation with Mr. Charchian at 10 o'clock. Then Justin Guard, Go for Women. He's the Vikes for Go for Women's Hoops. They are hosting this weekend at Williams Arena the first couple games of the NCAA tournament for the ladies. And the Gophers, a 4 seed, tipping off with Green Bay on Friday at Williams Arena. And JG is going to be in the catbird seat. So he's going to jump in studio before some other Gopher-related duties around 10:35. And then at 11 o'clock, Lavelle, the columnist, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, Lavelle E. Neal III for some potpourri-related conversation during the final hour. Next, we do have to address maybe a couple of Vikes bites. And your text messages in play throughout, by the way. Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN, text line 64686. Handle some texts. I've already got, a couple that I want to address. But talkbacks as well, free iHeartRadio app. You know how that thing works. And we're going to continue the conversation around the corner, transitioning to the Minnesota Vikings and a new member of the Purple that we're all very, very excited about, probably including the voice of the Minnesota Vikings, Paul Allen. We'll discuss that next. TimberTech Setlist, timbertech.com. Thank you, Brett. I'm Nordo in for PA. It's the Fan.
The Wolves. It's a Wild Wednesday here on The Fan, and we've got your shot at tickets to Wild Canucks April 2nd. Just use the iHeartRadio app, send us a talk back. Tell us who scores first for the Wild when they take on Chicago tomorrow night. Get full details, KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Wild Wednesday. Good conversation with Wes Walz, the previous segment. And as I mentioned, text messages, much appreciated, always accepted. But I got this one, and I want your take on it, Brett. 25 regulation wins for the Wild. 14th best in the league. That seems concerning. So before we get to a couple of Vikes nibbles, some nuggets, some bites, I remember earlier in the league, and I don't know, I mean, you don't strike me as a guy, you watch all the games, you love the team, you want them to win a cup. As do I. But you're not tallying how many overtime affairs or shootout affairs that they've had over the course of the season. But if you remember, maybe this was in late December or early January, definitely long before the Olympic break. I think they had this stretch where it was a bunch of extra period games, and then Russo he posted something on X that just kind of hit me with a ton of bricks. It was like the 21st or 22nd overtime game that they had played this year. And they were on the winning side, whatever that record was. I think they were 11-10. I think that's what it was. It was their 11th overtime or shootout game, and they were 11-10 in it. And at the time, it's like, wow. Like, feel free to get it done in the first 60, gentlemen. But to that end, with that text, it just kind of hits me thinking that, and you know, whether it's the even strength defense that Wes was talking about, I guess I was maybe incorrectly looking at it from the offensive side of things. This power play, as good as it is in the postseason, that might be mitigated at some point as the let them play philosophy might take hold. But specifically with the regulation wins, man, I mean, their inability to get it done in regulation, you can look at, again, how successful they've been in some of those spots. Zuccarello, the latest to handle business. But you can also look at, what was it, the Colorado game? I think it was Nico Sturm with a go-ahead shorthanded goal. You're up 2-1. They tie it and bring it into OT. McKinnon daggers them in the shootout a week and change ago, a couple Sundays ago. You could also look at a situation where you have a 3-1 lead after the first period in Chicago against a non-playoff team, and you find your way to requiring Zuccarello to be a hero. And requiring that, or putting yourself in spots like that as often as this team does, to that texter's point, could be very concerning. What do you think about all that, Brett?
In my opinion, an overtime win in the playoffs is just a win. You know, like, yeah, it's still 5-on-5, and it's different than the 3-on-3 or a shootout. But I think it does speak a little bit to the team's inability to put a complete 60 together at points in time. Obviously, they have done it at the past, and when they're firing, they are firing. But sometimes they just don't put it. And lately, you know, I thought Walz kind of underplayed it slightly. I'm not, you know, pitchforks, torches, let's run over to St. Paul and make our voices heard. Sure. But I'm a little concerned that they're not putting together a full 60, because you know you're going to need it in the playoffs. But that being said, I think going into overtime and winning a game isn't the end of the world. Being in games isn't the end of the world. And I think, if anything, I'd look at other places to be concerned about. But the overtime wins, if you make it in overtime in the postseason and you win, you still win that game and you move on. You win that game, the series.
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, if there ends up being a parade down West 7th, and you look back and it's like, geez, they went to 6 overtime games in the playoffs, and they were 5-1 in those affairs. I don't think any of us will go back. There will be no tallies about overtime or regulation victories. It just kind of sticks with me from the standpoint of, you're going to get bit, specifically in the postseason. If you're finding late 1-goal leads erased, if you're finding that, because off those 3 losses, and I liked, again, going back to what Wes was talking about, I loved, in some respects, things to pick apart, but you got Shesterkin on Saturday against the Rangers. The Leafs game, all that time, you know, can you call it puck luck? I mean, we can write off or minimize certain moments over the course of a long season. But to that end, the early urgency that you see last night, I mean, how about that feed from Kirill to Hartman? Yeah. Like, that's sweet, right? And Marcus Johansson. Marcus Johansson hasn't gotten paid off, it feels like 2 months since he scored. But he does, right? And
it actually was.
Yeah, I think it might have been. It was a long time, we'll say, for as far as the calendar is concerned. But Johansson gets that goal. It's like, okay, and great feed. I mean, the puck kind of just lands on his stick, but he handles it. He takes out the garbage, right? And you're up 2-0, and then boom, it's 2-1. But then you stretch it out again, right? And then but that second and third period in particular, it's like, man, we just can't pull away. Yeah. And so I just something that the texter kind of put in my mind, and you know, concern. What's the level of concern? There's a spectrum of concern.
I almost feel like it was the inverse of the 3 games at home, where they started slow, and then about halfway through the second, maybe start of the third, you go, oh, now they're really going. Now we're really skating. Yeah. It felt like the opposite of that, where the first period they were on fire, and they were, as you alluded to, scored many a beautiful goal, some not, but got out in front, and handedly so. And then it almost was like, all right, now we can coast back to what we were doing in the first period. And the Blackhawks, they get paid too, and they can come back and get back into the game. Then they had to put the foot back on the gas. I would just like to see them be so far ahead that it doesn't even matter if they take the foot off the gas or not.
Now, how about this? A texter offers a different perspective on this. As a Wild season ticket holder, well, first of all, that's awesome.
Congratulations.
That's great. Hope you're enjoying the season at Grand Casino Arena. But the point this person's trying to make, a team that is able to win close games, even in OT, builds confidence in close games in the playoffs. Iron
Now
is being sharpened. Who's better at OT than the Minnesota Wild? Nobody. All right, just a thought. 25 regulation wins. I'm just going to trust that initial. It's 14th in the NHL, and it's just kind of a striking contrast a bit when you see, and the teams we're comparing ourselves to. 8 more regulation wins the Dallas Stars have, 14 more the Colorado Avalanche have. But it was just a thought. All right, with all that out of the way, we got a couple of Vikes nibbles. Well, Vikes nibbles on a Wednesday.
Couple of Vikes bites. It's officially time to retire this.
He ain't heaven. He's a punter.
And rest in peace to that one.
So there's a non-zero chance. Congratulations to Ryan Wright on that contract that he was able to get from the New Orleans Saints. It is a profession. It is a potential income. Pretty nice income, certainly. But he got, I think, $14 million in total. It was a 3 or 4 year deal, and 8 of it's guaranteed. So thanks for his support. Thanks for his contributions. There's a non-zero chance that he chose the Saints because we referred to him as the plus-size punter. I don't know why I feel like that. I feel like there's a non-zero chance that the playful plus-size punter moniker, if both sides, all things are equal, but he hears some idiot 9 to noon singing a song about he ain't heavy, he's a punter. He probably chose the Bayou. Maybe for the music and the cuisine as well. Nah, I can't do that. That's stupid. And look at me. Who am I criticizing? My goodness. But best of luck to Ryan Wright. But we do have a new member of the team. And, well, if you're Johnny Hecker. And first started punting in the NFL 2012. He was young. He was 22. Former Beaver, Oregon State. You saw him with the St. Louis and Los Angeles Rams for a number of seasons, a decade, in fact. And then you saw him in Carolina. Most recently, last year, he was punting with the Tennessee Titans. Who's your punter? Wasn't it
Daniel Whelan?
He's pretty good, right?
The Irish ace, yeah.
Nicknames for everybody over there. See that? We call our guy the plus-size punter. You call your guy the Irish ace. Now I get it. Now I'm starting to finally get it. But Johnny Hecker. Now, if you're married, you probably heard at some point during your marriage vows to have and to hold. Well, with Johnny, it's to heave and to hold because he passes. 15 of 26 in his career, 193 through the air, and a touchdown. Now, that touchdown, I believe, came in his rookie season. Nonsense. 12 of his 15 completions resulted in a first down. 7.4 yards per attempt. Nice job, Johnny.
Is this quarterback competition open still? That's
not bad. Not bad for a punter. He's not a mobile passer, though. He has a total of 4 rushes in his career, totaling a negative number, I believe, minus 17. Had a run for 3 once. Good for that. So more of a pocket passer. Now, to heave and to hold, I think that's really the key with this. Johnny Hecker, the overlap with the Los Angeles Rams, 6 degrees of Kevin O'Connell and company. There's probably a connection there. And for Will Reichert, keep this thing rolling. We got the All-Pro in DePaula, snapping it to Johnny Hecker. And Will Reichert, as long as there aren't any wires in the way, is generally going to be pure. Now, a cynical person or a pessimistic person would say that in free agency with Kyler Murray and Johnny Hecker, the Vikings added a passer who punts and a punter who passes. If you were pessimistic about Kyler Murray. No! A passer who punts and a punter who passes. Now, this is no surprise because KFAN listeners are not just loyal, but they have the memories of elephants. We have to go back. I just got to verify this here for accuracy matters. 9 to noon. All of you listening know
I've
that.
always said that about this program.
And accuracy matters specifically because I don't want to hear Brett play the Covenant cleanup song that he is forever hovering over with his mouse. This goes back to 2023. It was an October game, an afternoon. It was a beautiful fall day in Charlotte. And the Minnesota Vikings at that time trying to find, I believe, their first victory. And the Panthers were hideous. And at that time, Adam Thielen, they're doing that retirement presser tomorrow at TCO, excuse me. They had Adam Thielen at that time. So I believe cool reunion and all of that. But Kirk and company, we need that victory. Well, it certainly didn't help when early on Kirk Cousins throws a pick six to Sam Franklin. Didn't really like that. But Jefferson, back then he was JJ, got into the end zone. Hey, DJ Wanham with a fumble TD. Dig that. And the Vikings found their way to victory. DJ Wanham, future, maybe it was an audition for the Carolina Panthers at that time. But PA, as long as he's been doing 9 to noon, he's been calling Vikings games for a very, very long time. He tries to find the deep dive stats, the intriguing, the obscure, that he will slip into a broadcast for the sake of enriching the minds of listeners. And he's as good as anybody at it. And he was going way deep on Johnny Hekker.
And now Johnny Hecker's in the game to punt. Now, you got to be careful with Johnny Pecker. All right, 3-2. You got to be all right, 3-2. You got to be careful with Johnny Hekker because he likes to pass. Now, he hasn't thrown a pass since 2020, but in his career, 14 of 23, 186 and a touchdown. He's a punter with a 61% completion percentage. Johnny Hekker takes the snap.
Keep an eye on Hekker.
And Hekker with a very high punt. Brandon Powell calls for a fair catch at the 17. And yours truly has just immortalized himself on the Power Trip Morning Show. Got to be careful with Johnny Pecker.
Oh, my goodness. It doesn't get old.
Got to be careful with Johnny Pecker.
Oh, man, I love that guy. He does so much prep work. He puts so much mental capacity into from the depth chart. You should see. I mean, it's like that Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny. That meme of him in front of the whiteboard with the pins
Pepe
and all the
Sylvia.
Yeah, Pepe Sylvia.
Yeah.
It's like that in the Vox box where he's got sheets up of everything, every possible outcome. The host of 9 to noon has it figured out and he's ready for it. He was ready for Johnny Hekker to punt.
Got to be careful with Johnny Pecker.
Well, at some point, we got to have Johnny Hekker on the show.
Got to be careful with Johnny Pecker.
I absolutely love that. I love that to no end. I love the fact that he's here to heave and to hold. To heave and to hold for Will Reichard as the special teams battery of specialists is complete now. So welcome to the Covenant, Johnny Hekker. And yes, if anyone is already potentially tired of that sounder, you need to understand it's going to keep coming. We're going to wear that thing out. We had a fun week or two with that 3 years ago. Now he's on the team. Oh my goodness, that's terrific. So welcome Johnny Hekker. Having a little fun with that, and excited to see him in purple. So that answers that question, right? In a free agency period. I think Kevin Seifert wrote on it. I just saw the headline. I haven't read the article yet, but elite work that Seifert does, kind of noting just how quiet, how hush-hush that free agency has been for Vikings. You got Johnny Hekker into the mix. Kyler, we know about that, and we'll continue to talk about what that's going to look like. Cool article, speaking fellow coverer of the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL, Alec Lewis. He hooked up with a film guy via The Athletic, I believe. His name's Ted Wynn, and they did a really sweet breakdown of Kyler's game and maybe how that could translate to this scheme, this offense, this coach, etc. Alec's going to be in studio with us on Friday morning at 10, so looking forward to that. But what we know about Kyler, we'll continue to talk about him. James Pierre, former cornerback of the Steelers. And then it's just kind of some re-signs, right? DePaula, Tavier Thomas. You find some money for Eric Wilson, things like that. Just a very, very quiet free agency period. But you mentioned we made another move, Brett. Is that accurate?
It's very accurate.
He's an offensive lineman, probably. I guess I saw something, a swing guy. That's been kind of used to describe him a bit. He started 4 games last year. I don't know much about him, but Alec Lewis posted on X in passing that he apparently graded out pretty well in those 4 starts, specifically again in the run game. So Ryan Vandemark kind of filling out a depth role. I've seen it bandied about, they
did an offer sheet, so they must like him.
Well, I guess I should say it's not official yet because the Bills have 4 or 5 days to match that. Otherwise, he would indeed then join the Minnesota Vikings. So it's an offer sheet, not an acquisition. And I appreciate you. You know what that is? I made a mistake. Just play it.
All right. Say less.
It's a covenant cleanup. We say stupid things all of the time.
There you go.
Thank you for that. So we'll watch for Vandemark. Still, very quiet free agency period for the Minnesota Vikings. Thank you for a couple of Vikes nibbles, a couple of nuggets, some bites, if you will. That's Brett Blakemore. I'm Nordo. I'm in for PA today, and we'll continue Vikings conversation at the top of the hour when Paul Charchian joins us. You're listening to 9 to Noon on The Fan.
Challenge has returned. You can head to our contest page, lock in your bracket today. First place win $2,000 and a 65-inch TV. Plus, a perfect bracket could land you $1 million. Don't delay. Get yours now, KFAN.com, keyword contest. It's driven by Dave Smith Motors, America's only national car dealer.
That's Brett Blakemore. I'm Nordo from 9 to Noon. Nordo in for PA. Tomorrow, PA back in the mix, and we are back to Tria. We were there a week ago. Sadly, it didn't work out with the Flyers in town. Shootout winners were the visitors. But we're going to try it again tomorrow against these Blackhawks. And it sounds like Anthony LaPanta is going to be in the mix later in the show. Gorgie kind of co-hosting early on. We'll have Hines and hopefully Russo. Radio Joe O'Donnell. As well. Now, to the Hoop Squad, they were victorious last night.
Fleming kept the rebound alive, but Kyle Anderson controls. Here's Highland across the lane. Dosunmu, the driving layup. He got it. How about that pass? That was perfection.
Well, that had some Magic Johnson flair to it right there.
Holmes knew he had a small window to zip that thing through, and he did exactly that.
Man, I was sweating this game. Terrific work by Alan Horton and Jim Peterson on the call last night. We're your home for Wolves basketball. Listen via the free iHeartRadio app. 116-104 the final. Just kind of talking whether it was the Wild, and it felt like more people are holding kind of the opinion that a Wes Walz did. Offered us earlier on. Wes Walz opening the show, or Pat Micheletti early on in the week, and just seen a lot written and reported on it, that there was some ugliness to those 3 losses from the Flyers, and then the back-to-back with the Rangers and the Maple Leafs on Sunday, and just kind of busting out of that early energy and urgency specifically that you saw in the first period last night. That was a team that's kind of come back to life. A little bit different in the conversation for the Wolves, and without Anthony Edwards being reported yesterday, he's out at least a week, maybe 2. He'll be reevaluated with this right knee soreness, and something that has just kind of gradually gotten worse in the recent days and weeks. And I, still kind of was like, what's up with this infected toe thing? That's what I was. Are we going to have to amputate a toe with Anthony? But no, this right knee is a different thing altogether. And so without him, how do they look? And just kind of sarcastically, many of us would just say, well, they're just going to go out and handle business. It was kind of a clomp fest early on. It looked like Devin Booker. Devin Booker was terrific last night, and as frustrating as he is, all the crying memes aside, dude is so smooth. And I think Jim Peep put it this way on the broadcast: he's a professional scorer, and that's what you saw from Booker last night. Jalen Green was just hideous. And I think he had 8 or 9 points, but he was 2 of 15 shooting at one point. But the star of the show, Ayu Dosunmu and his work last night. We floated it yesterday a bit, just kind of, could you start Dosunmu at point guard, but then who goes to the bench? Would it be Dante DiVincenzo? How does that look for him? Well, he was 0 of 8 last night. Let's not base everything off of last night, but it was a tough night shooting for Dante. Last night it kind of looked pretty good, and now that's without Ant. That's the difficulty of kind of analyzing any of this, right? Without Edwards in the mix, but Bones terrific off the bench. Nas, it felt like there was kind of a defensive sea change a bit between Bones and Nas in the mix last night. Bones rather. Just all go. I mean, there are no breaks with that kid, and he was terrific last night. But Ayu, I liked Dosunmu in that role, at least for a night, and moving forward, a win they needed. Now they got to do it again tonight against the hideous Utah Jazz. So building off of that, but man, in terms of staying out of the play-in, absolutely had to have it, got to have it game last night. They stretched that deficit to 3 games for the Phoenix Suns now, sitting in the 7th. And the Wolves, I guess, a bit more comfortably in 6th. Weird to say that, but awful timing for Ant to go down. But the Wolves, at least for a night, handled business. Shorty here, because we're going to pause and come back. Paul Charchian is going to join us from Utah, some Vikings and NFL related conversation with Charch around the corner. Stay tuned. It's 9 to noon.